Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. And today, Mike Britton, CISO at Abnormal Security, is going to be joining me on the podcast today. What a great name for a company that is. And for those of you that have not heard of Abnormal Security, essentially they provide a behavioural AI-based security platform that leverages machine learning to stop sophisticated inbound email attacks and dangerous email platform attacks that evade traditional security solutions. Their anomaly detection engine leverages identity and context to analyse the risk of every cloud email event, and as a result, preventing inbound email attacks, detecting compromised accounts, and remediating emails in milliseconds. So I'm looking forward to exploring this space in a little bit more detail today and the kind of problems that they're solving. So buckle up and hold on tight, because today I'm going to beam your ears all the way to Dallas, Texas to discuss all this and the company's shift to cloud security. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Mike Britton. I am the Chief Information Security Officer for a company called Abnormal Security. I've been in the information security industry for a little over 25 years. I like to think of myself as a veteran in the industry, back even so far as before it was even called cybersecurity. I've been at Abnormal for about 20 months. And prior to that, I worked most of those 25 years in big, large enterprises. And this is definitely a different foray for me into the world of cybersecurity startups.
Wow, sounds like there's a lot to unpack there. 25 years, a cybersecurity veteran before it was even called cybersecurity. So can I ask that you share your origin story, where your passion for tech came from, or a moment that would put you on this path you're on today?
Sure, absolutely. So probably like most people my age, my passion started with when I was a kid, and we got a Commodore 64 and got introduced to the world of personal computing and tinkered around with it and moved on from that to the PC and built several of my own PCs and really enjoyed it. In high school, I took COBOL programming and was really good at it, and just kind of always had a knack for understanding things technical and being able to comprehend these things like computer languages and things like that. I kind of diverged off of that. And when I went to college, I didn't really want to pursue a computer science degree. And I started out my freshman year doing computer science, but quickly pivoted over to something that I was a little bit more passionate about from a learning perspective and a schooling perspective. My degree in undergrad was political science. And that's probably one of these questions of, well, how did you go from liking computers to political science back to a career in cybersecurity? I will say political science is one of those things. I'm a history buff. I love the aspects of government and politics. And if I didn't end up in cybersecurity, I probably would have gone to law school and been a lawyer these days. I think political science also gives you a lot of really good skills to use in cybersecurity. I really honed my skills of writing and being able to make an argument and defend it, and all things that are useful as a cybersecurity executive and any really career business, being able to articulate a problem and a solution and being able to defend it really are useful tools that have served me well throughout my entire career. When I got out of school, my very first job was doing mainframe security for a company called MCI. A great big telecommunications company that was eventually acquired by WorldCom. And then from there, I moved on to a company called VF Corporation. They're the parent company of many well-known brands like Vans and North Face and other apparel brands that they're really well known for. Made a little bit of a divot into IBM for about a year, and then finally landed with a company called Alliance Data. Alliance Data is one of these weird organizations in that nobody knows what they do. And I was there for almost 16 years, and it really was a different job and a different organization pretty much every 18 months to 2 years throughout that 16 years. We went from a young company that was fairly small, 4 or 5,000 people, all the way up to Fortune 500 company with over 20,000 people globally, and then back down to just a financial services company. So Alliance Data did a lot of things. It's known best for its retail credit card division that does a lot of private label co-brand cards. They're the credit card behind Victoria's Secret's credit card program, or Crate and Barrel, or things like Williams Sonoma. There's a lot of different brands. Anytime you go into a department store in the U.S. or a retail store, a lot of them have their own private label, and we're a big player. Our Alliance Data was in a big player in that space. About 65 million credit card holders. After I left, or right after I left, they rebranded the Bread Financial. So if you were to look them up in the market today, they're a company called Bread Financial. But that's where I spent a lot of my career, and moved from different roles in the organization to eventually becoming the CISO there, and spent my last 5 or 6 years as the head of security and head of privacy at Alliance Data.
And it'd be that path that would lead you to Abnormal Security, which is a behavioral AI-based security platform. But can you tell me more about the story behind the company, the problems you set out to solve with technology, and what makes you stand out in this increasingly crowded space? And I've got to ask about the name as well. Is there a story behind that too?
Well, yes. And just how I came to know Abnormal is part of my story from Alliance Data that I didn't mention, but I was an early customer. I've been a big fan of disruptive technology and players in various spaces in cybersecurity that are looking to do things different or better, or make a change. At the end of the day, if I kept the same solutions for technology to protect against the threats, it wouldn't take long for those to be obsolete and no longer effective in stopping bad guys as they change. So part of my journey at Alliance Data is I ran across Abnormal, and in 2019 I plugged them in. 2020, early 2020, I became an early customer of Abnormal's, and really loved the vision of the founders. Loved how easy the solution is. So many vendors say, "Hey, it's super easy to put this in," but the reality of it is that super easy has an asterisk next to it that involves 37 other steps, and some of those could be risky to your organization. But that wasn't the case with Abnormal. And the other thing I liked about them is it wasn't just an email security play. That was the starting point for them. But because the two founders don't come from security, they have a broader vision of what they really want to do. And it really comes down to, we're starting with email because it's such a big problem. But how do we take that same learning, that same knowledge, that same machine learning and AI, and how do we solve other problems around the back office, the modern office workplace, other things within your cloud office ecosystem that bad guys are attacking? I love the name Abnormal. I can't tell you how many people, it kind of gets attention, and I'll give them a lot of credit because I've seen a lot of really bad names for cybersecurity technology companies, but this is a phenomenal name. And really what it is our job as Abnormal is, we're really there to help you understand what's normal, and everything else is abnormal. And so our job is to, reinstill that sense of security and safety with the email platform as a starting point, so that you as a security leader and executive, hey, with a high degree of efficacy, we're going to keep those bad emails out of your inboxes. We're going to protect your email system. We're going to make things safe for your users to click and respond and do their jobs, because, after all, I want my finance and accounting people, I want my HR people, I want them to do their jobs. I want them to be cyber savvy. I want them to understand awareness to a degree. But if they're having to take an extra 30 minutes for every email that comes in to really analyze and understand, or they're having to send it over to the security team, that's disruptive to the business. That's costly to the business.
And one of the things that put you on my radar was when I recently read that you've redefined cloud email security with the launch of a security posture management platform to protect against email platform attacks. Can you tell me more about this move?
Yeah, when you think about email security, we often focus on the actual content of the email. We focus on a person sending an email to a recipient and there being some form of social engineering or a link or malware, whatever the nefarious intent of the attacker is. And that is important, and that is a multi-billion-dollar problem, and it's something we do solve. But there's the entire cloud email platform as well that's also susceptible to risk and threats and other ways that bad guys can take advantage of it. You look at things like News Corp had an attack where China infiltrated their email environment, and they were able to install a malicious app in their email platform, and all of a sudden it's siphoning off emails to a third party for them to sit back and see everything that's going on. And so it's far more than just the payload of the email itself. It's everything around that email. And keep in mind too, so many organizations have moved from on-prem exchange where, I have an email server or email servers that sit in a data center and I can tightly control them, to now everything's in the cloud. Everything's configurable by hitting a website and pressing a button. And some of those choices can be detrimental to your organization. Some of those can allow attackers other side channel attacks, other ways to get in. And so it just kind of proliferates the risk and the exposure across it. And that's what we're looking to do with our posture management. We're looking to close those goals. We're looking to provide a holistic security platform for all aspects of your email, your cloud email.
And to understand the scale of the problem we're talking about here, can I see you expand on that scale, especially around open, interconnected nature of cloud email platforms and how it could possibly create more entry points for attackers to exploit and manipulate, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. And I've seen examples. I've lived examples. Back at Alliance Data, we were early adopters of Office 365. And we had a few of those problems that bit us in the butt early on. And while we didn't have any issue that created a loss for the organization, they created fire drills, they created scrambling around, they created things where I had to invoke our incident response process, things like that. But there's a lot of different areas. I think of, most organizations at this point should or are in the process or have deployed multi-factor authentication. It's great. It's not the silver bullet that sometimes made out to be. There are situations where you have legacy things and other accounts that may not be able to be protected by multi-factor, or maybe have conditional access policies that create gaps where you think everything's covered and maybe there's some that aren't. The other issue, like we saw with Uber late last year, is there's such a thing as MFA fatigue, where users they get conditioned to seeing something pop up on their phone or whatever device to say, "Hey, is this you?" And after a while, they hit the button inadvertently, or they get it over and over again, and they get tired of seeing it, and so they click. Or maybe they're even social engineered like Uber, and someone's contacting them and saying, "Hey, that's me, IT. I need you to click that button." Whatever the case may be, there are ways around MFA. There's multiple ways. So that's one of them. Third-party integrations. Everybody touts API connectivity. Everybody touts the ability to get things done and be more productive. You've got things like Grammarly and all sorts of other third-party apps that are great apps, and most of them are highly secure and are going to do the right things. But there's also things that show up that are may look innocuous or maybe something that's not what it seems. And you install that, or your CEO integrates a third-party app with his email, and all of a sudden, all of his emails are getting sucked out to a third-party site, and who knows what's happening there. So there's just a variety of ways that things can get misconfigured, things can get taken advantage of, and create other holes and ways for attackers to get that email. And it's not always about getting the user to do something. Sometimes it's just about collecting that data and raw intel so I can use it to attack a third party, or I can attack your organization later and have all the bits and pieces, whether it's a thread hijack or whether it's just knowing the names and the people and the processes to more effectively social engineer your way into the organization.
I just wanted to give a quick mention to our sponsors, because this month the podcast is brought to you by Flipper, which is the #1 marketplace to buy and sell online businesses and startups. So, do you run your own online business? And have you ever considered selling your website, your store, your tech, or your app? Because with world-class combined matching technology, dedicated brokers, and end-to-end services, all at the most efficient price, Flipper is making it simple to sell your online business. So to get a free valuation, visit my friends at flipper.com/techtalks, where each month thousands of online business owners exit with Flipper. Again, visit flipper.com/techtalks. And before you came on the podcast today, I was doing a little research. I was on your website there, and I was also reading how you're helping security teams have that immediate visibility to each of the potential entry and exit points to the cloud email platform, beginning with 3 knowledge bases. Can I ask that you share them just for anyone listening that are unfamiliar with that?
Absolutely. So, and these knowledge bases are great because they're different lenses into the health and the risk of your environment. And the first one is really what we call vendor based. It's been around for a while. It was around when I was a customer at Alliance Data. And what it is it's the ability to kind of see across your environment, what are those third parties? What are those suppliers and partners and vendors that your users are interacting with? And which ones have we identified as either we've seen account takeovers, which are really bad, or maybe the attackers are pretending to be them. Maybe they're doing lookalike domains or spoofing or some form of pretending to be a vendor. And you can go out and you can definitely see several sites that will kind of tell you which vendors and which companies are most often spoofed and pretended to be companies like Microsoft and PayPal and things like that. And so what this does is it gives you a federated look across all of our customers. And we have hundreds and hundreds of customers and large organizations and customers across all industry verticals. So what this does is it allows you as a company to see, hey, I've got certain users that are engaging with these vendors. Maybe it's legitimate, maybe it's not, but here's my risky vendors as defined by Abnormal. So maybe I just need to be a little bit more cautious. Maybe I need to do some awareness with these particular users to let them know, hey, just be extra cautious with these companies because we've seen some bad guys pretending to be them, or we've seen bad guys taking over their accounts. So that's the first one. The other one that's somewhat new is what we call people base, and it takes all the information. And there's so many rich signals in Azure and that define what apps people are using, how they're authenticating, where they're authenticating from, and it really creates that identity and behavior baselines to say, hey, here's the normal expected patterns of this particular user. And now all of a sudden they've deviated from that. And it gives you really some good insight into what's going on with your users, because you've heard this over and over again. The name of the game is people. At the end of the day, it all comes down to a human at a keyboard. And if we can understand how your humans, how your employees are behaving, what they're doing, not from a sense of monitoring behavior like a web filtering or productivity or things like that, but understanding risk for your employee population, then that as a security team, you can better defend and better protect your users. And then the other one that's it's new, and we've kind of soft launched it for our customers, and we're going to be rolling it out in greater detail in the coming months, is called AppBase. And that gives you a visibility into what third-party apps are connected into your Azure environment, what apps are integrated, who's integrated them, real-time alerts on when somebody connects and integrates a net new app, which apps are verified. So Azure has a marketplace like most platforms. And so you want to really focus on those apps that aren't verified. Is it a homegrown app? Is it a malicious app? What apps affect what users? Is this an app that has access to your CEO's mailbox? Is this an app that has the ability to write to your email platform? And really just give you an understanding of all the many apps. What we're seeing just in the initial outlook of what we've got out there, most organizations, especially large organizations, could have thousands of apps that are integrated into their Azure environment. And I'll tell you, working for a large enterprise organization, it's kind of hard to get control of those. Some organizations can kind of put the hammer down and really gate what gets integrated. But a lot of organizations, they move to the cloud and then realized all of a sudden that, hey, my users are integrating things are getting, third-party apps are getting integrated, and there's really very little visibility because maybe IT has the keys to make that visible. Or, and honestly, part of the problem is Microsoft doesn't make it super easy for you to see those things either. It's a little bit convoluted. So we kind of take the guesswork out. We give it to you in the same pane of glass with the email security, and really kind of start tying all these things together.
And I think I also read that after taking the information derived from those knowledge bases there, that this security posture management product then monitors each entity for potentially risky configuration changes. For any techies listening, can you just work me through how that works too?
Absolutely. So we get that baseline. We understand what normal is for your organization. And then when we see things like someone's been elevated to a global tenant admin, or someone's just granted themselves access to the CEO or another VIP's mailbox, or someone turned on IMAP, which is a risky protocol for a mailbox, or someone disabled a conditional access policy that turned off MFA for a section of your users. All of those things are things that come up for the security team to be able to see and say, hey, this change was made. Here's when it happened. Here's kind of an analyst view of that change, and it allows you to go take action on it. Part of the problem with cloud email security in general is I can go look at it. I can go see what it is today. I don't have that continuous and continual assurance that everything is good. It's kind of a very static view of the system, and then I go back and look at it again. And this really gives you that continuous assurance that, hey, things are how I want them to be. Things are configured appropriately. And when something does happen outside of that, we're going to get an immediate alert. We're going to be able to take action quickly.
And just to bring to life everything that we're talking about here, do you have any before and after use cases that you can help share, just for listeners to understand the ROI and what the before and after picture looked like, and also what kind of feedback you've received?
Yeah, those are great questions. So we just released a Forrester Total Economic Impact study earlier this month. And we're really excited to share that the average enterprise receives a 278% return on investment with Abnormal. The other thing I like to also, and this is from my experience, I've bought a lot of big solutions. And part of the problem is I buy something and it may take me 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year to fully implement it. With Abnormal, I can implement it in about 30 to 90 seconds. I can turn it on in a read-only perspective for the POV. And then when you say, hey, I want to buy Abnormal, this is super awesome, literally flip up a switch and now you're protecting your users. And it's not months, it's not weeks, it's not days, it's seconds to maybe minutes if you're slow. And I can start seeing that ROI. The other nice thing is we're able to surface some interesting attacks and things that we're stopping. So one of the things that was super effective with me at my last job is I was able to take some really awesome dashboard reporting and interesting attacks out of Abnormal and share it with my board and my executives. I was able to show where here's my users that are being attacked. Here's the users that are being impersonated. And here's some examples, real world examples of things that we've stopped. Here's a fake invoice that didn't get paid. Here's a bad guy trying to do credential phishing, all sorts of attacks that are notable and they resonate because they're the things that my board reads in the Wall Street Journal to say, here's how a company fell for something and here's where it impacted them. And then when it comes to feedback, this has been phenomenal. I mean, I've loved vendors. I have some cybersecurity vendors I love and some that it's a necessary evil and some I hate, but I've never worked with an organization where so many people come up to us and just they're passionate about our solution. We were at Black Hat last August and we were at one of the events and these two random guys came up to us because they saw the Abnormal logo on one of my colleagues' shirts and they were just ranting and raving about what a life changer, what a game changer the solution was. They loved it. We weren't even soliciting this feedback. They were just that passionate of the difference it made. I go to several conferences and events too. And I love hearing from CISOs and security leaders that your solution's great. Your solution lived up to what you guys promised. Your solution has made my life easier. And by and far, that's the consistent feedback we get day in and day out with our customers.
I love that. And where do you go from here, though? What's going to be your big focus for this year? I mean, you've already started fantastically, but where do you go from here, and what's going to be your big focus?
Yeah, part of it is just to remember that Abnormal is a 4-year-old company. Yeah. And we've had so much success in such a short period of time. And particularly in North America, we're going to continue to expand into the Fortune 1000. We're going to hit a lot of Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. We're also focused on SLED markets as well. If you think about it, a ripe hunting ground for bad guys is college and universities and high schools and those type of organizations. And we're focused, and we've seen a tremendous amount of success protecting those type of users as well, because we often forget that companies have impact when a fake invoice is paid or someone loses their credentials or something bad happens in email. But there's also a personal aspect of it too, where that person that clicked, they feel the shame of clicking, or they feel the shame of being taken advantage of. And sometimes there's some personal impact to them. Maybe they lost some money, or they had their credentials stolen and it was disruptive. So by protecting our companies and our customers, we're also protecting people as well. And we're also focusing on some other markets as well. We're going to expand our presence in the United Kingdom and Northern Europe, as well as Australia and parts of Asia. And as we continue to expand this across the globe, we're going to be picking up new functionality and features to support different types of customers. So there's a lot there. And then the other piece that I won't go into a lot of details yet, but stay tuned, it's coming. We're in the process of creating additional products that really transform how cloud security is viewed. And it goes beyond just email. We're looking at how organizations protect their cloud communications. There's other ways that companies communicate. They communicate through Slack and Microsoft Teams and other big, large enterprise SaaS solutions that we want to protect it all. So stay tuned for more there. And perhaps we can continue this conversation in a few months.
100%. We'll have to get you back on later in the year. And for today, we started your podcast talking about your origin story, what put you on this path. I'm now going to ask you to look back and ask, was there a particular book that might have inspired you that we could add to our Amazon wish list and leave it for everybody listening to learn from too? But what would that book be and why?
I'll give you 2, because I think they're 2 for really different reasons, but I think they're both, they've been really good for me and help me as just, not only grow as a cybersecurity leader, but grow as a person. The first is a book called Essentialism, and it's by Greg McKeown. And I love it because we are so driven to be a multitasking, and I'm the king of trying to multitask. And I love this book because really the human brain wasn't wired to multitask, and that's part of our problem. And I love that. And it's a really easy book to read. It's short. But it's profound in that it really kind of helps you dive down into what's important, what's essential. And it's a game changer to really kind of not only help you in the business sense as a professional, but also on a personal level. And then the other one that I like, and I'm in the process of reading and getting towards the end, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And that's another great book because, we're creatures of habits. That's essential to our mission as Abnormal. People are, they're easy to predict. And in this book, it's really, how do you build these little small things? How do you make little small changes that make big, profound impacts in your life and set the right habits in motion to be successful? And so those are the 2 that really resonate with me on my bookshelf these days.
Awesome. Well, I'll get both of those added to our Amazon wish list. And before I let you go, for anyone listening, just wanting to find out more information about Abnormal Security, the topics we've explored today, what's the best starting point for everything?
Yeah, I would say always hit me up on LinkedIn. You can easily find me, Mike Britton, on LinkedIn. You can also email me, mike@abnormalsecurity.com, or just hit our website, abnormalsecurity.com. Any of those ways are easy ways to get a hold of us or get a hold of me.
Well, I'll add those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easy. I love chatting with you today, learning more about the company's shift to cloud security, the recent announcements, how you're doing it, the feedback, the difference you're making, but all washed down with your origin story and 2 cracking books to leave us with too, to keep us busy. But more than anything, just thanks for joining me today, Mike.
It was absolutely a pleasure of mine, and thanks for having me. And it was a great conversation.
So a big thank you to Mike for coming on here today, sharing his story, talking about the anomaly detection engine now and how it leverages identity and context to analyse the risk of every cloud email event and preventing inbound email attacks and detecting compromised accounts in milliseconds. But I'm curious, what are you seeing in this space, and what are you or your company doing to protect your emails? Does abnormal security appeal to you? Are you using a different solution? Do you prefer that? Do you think that has more to offer? This show is not about my opinions or today's guest opinions. It's just about putting something out there and starting a conversation, starting a discussion, and keeping it going long after this podcast is finished. So anything you would like to share with me, I'd love to hear it. Whether that be a question, a comment, or pitch to come on the show. And you can reach me nice and easily by emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just @NeilC. And also, why not join me again tomorrow where we will do it all again. So a big thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.